Welcome to the Invested Dads Podcast, simplifying financial topics so that you can take action and make your financial situation better. Helping you to understand the current world of financial planning and investments, here are your hosts, Josh Robb and Austin Wilson.
All right. Hey, welcome back to the Invested Dads Podcast, a podcast where we take you on a journey to better your financial future. And today, we're going to talk about some pretty relevant real-time news. We are recording this on the 8th of March, and we have some pretty big news about the new stimulus bill.
That's right, the American Rescue Plan Act of 2021, which, first off, let me say they've already failed us in that they don't have a cool little thing like the Heroes Act and all this.
ARPA.
Man, you had all that time to think of a cool name, and this
Fail.
So that did pass the House just over a week ago. And then the Senate took it up last week, and they had to go through their budget reconciliation process. That way they could just pass it with a 51 majority. And so in doing so, they had to throw some things out. They changed it, and whenever you change a bill and it doesn't match what the House passed, you got to reconcile those two together. And so they passed theirs, the Senate did, over the weekend. Goes back to the House. They've already taken it up. They're expecting maybe Tuesday or Wednesday, the latest, to have a vote again on it. Once it's voted on them, it goes to Biden's desk, and he's already pretty much indicated he's signing it. So,
At least at this point, it kind of seems like the House should have enough votes to pass it pretty much as is.
It was close. They had, I would say between 7 and 9 vote majority on this bill that they passed. Now, the worry is they took out the $15 minimum wage.
And some infrastructure.
Some of the progressives really wanted. And so they're hoping to be able to talk everybody into voting for this version and not going back through, and because if they change anything, it starts the whole process over again.
There was also some infrastructure plans that there was a train in Silicon Valley.
Underground train.
Yeah, it was in the first bill. It passed the House. Mm-hmm. It's now not. And there was also a bridge, I think, from New York to California.
It's a big bridge.
That would be a big bridge. New York to Canada. Yes, you're correct. That was also
the interstate system.
Yeah, that's
Austin.
I-70.
That's how you get there.
I-70. But yeah, that was scrapped as well. So those are kind of the two major differences, as well as some threshold differences, which we're going to talk about. So right off the bat, back late last year, when the next round of fiscal stimulus was being discussed, the fact that the government believes that direct payments to individuals is a good way to help people during this tough time, as well as, to stimulate and reinvigorate the economy coming out of the COVID pandemic-induced recession that we're, I guess, technically still in. Yeah. So, there were people on both sides of the aisle late last year were in favor of not $1,200 like we got earlier in the year, but $2,000.
$2,000, that was the number thrown
So, but what was able to get passed really quickly was a slimmed-down version of that bill. Mm-hmm. And that slimmed-down version of the bill was $600 per person that was paid. It was approved and signed in December. It really got paid in January. But that was, phase 1.5 of stimulus or whatever, with the anticipation that there would be more to come. And there was broad support on both sides of the aisle for that. So what do you do when you take the promised $2,000 minus the already given $600? You get
$1.9 trillion.
Actually pretty darn close, but $1,400 roughly per person is actually this is the detail that most people are going to care about most about this bill. And what's all likely to happen is that when the House, approves the changes and Biden signs the bill, there is a law. So we have the law, and then at that point, it should be a relatively quick turnaround, similar to what happened in December, because they're using the same mechanisms they've already used twice. Yep. If you have your electronic, deposits set up for your taxes, you're going to get within a few weeks.
Yep. Within days of it passing, they think they'll start sending out the first payment.
Yep. And then, so obviously, if you're using mail, it'll take a little bit longer and stuff like that. Yep. So anyway, $1,400 per person. Now, that is different than we talked about last spring when it was $1,200 for adult and $600 for kids. Right. Then it was $600 for everyone in December. This is $1,400 for everyone.
Right. And so we'll walk through some of these different things. And so the first is who gets it. That's been the big question. So $1,400 per person, per individual. And so they set these thresholds. They said, okay, if you file your tax, because all this, again, is based off of your tax returns. And that's the numbers and data they're using. And they're saying it's off a 2019 tax return unless
you already filed your
2020.
Yeah.
Then we're going to take 2020. Now, in some of the prior bills, they said they'll look at either or. Now, this one is just whatever is your most recent. So if you filed 2020 taxes, that's what they're going to look at. If you have not filed yet, 2019.
Yes.
If you've not filed it, I would probably look at the numbers and say, am I crossing these thresholds? And maybe wait to file until you get your tax return.
Or vice versa. Suppose you made way less money in 2020 than you did in 2019.
Correct.
You may want to file your 2020 taxes, now.
Yeah, right away.
Roughly now. We're this is going to come out on Thursday. We're recording on Monday, so you might be too late at that. Who knows?
So that's what they're going to look at. So the thresholds they have, and these are a little bit different than in the past ones. And
well,
so
and they got reduced from the House bill to the Senate bill.
Right. That's one of the things they adjusted. So if you're a single filer on your tax, so you file singly, $75,000 is the threshold to get the $1,400. Now, if you have above $75,000, they do allow a phase out from $75,000 to $80,000.
Right. It's not a big window. Yeah.
They've narrowed these down. At $80,000, you're pretty much phased out.
Yes.
So,
and that's adjusted gross income.
AGI, adjusted gross income. So you have some of those deductions, things taken off. So it's not your income, but adjusted gross income.
Right.
Head of household. So if you file as head of household, and there's certain stipulations when you qualify for that, they've increased that. That's $112,500.
Yep.
So they're giving you a break, assuming that there's other dependents and there's a reason why you're not filing single there. That maxes out at $120,000, so you actually have a little bit wider range there for that.
Yep.
And then married filing jointly is just double the single. It's $150,000, and then you phase out at $160,000. Again, it's just double the single threshold.
Exactly. And like we said, that is kind of what a lot of people are going to be focusing on. This is money that they're going to be seeing very soon, kind of like they already had before, and that will be coming soon.
Yes.
That's kind of key.
This is the whole point, is this checks getting in so that people can help cover all those costs that they're incurred and help stimulate the economy. Now, the big piece of that, and you mentioned, is this is for everyone. This is for people.
Yes.
Whereas in the first round, your kids had a different amount.
Yep.
Dependents. All dependents receive $1,400 as well. Now, there's some certain things along with that, but one of the improvements, if you want to say that, or one of the things that probably got a lot of complaints the original stimulus, was that college-age kids are usually still a dependent on their parents. So they're not they're an adult from the age standpoint. They're over 18, but they're still a dependent on their parents' tax returns. So as an adult who's probably employed and realistically probably facing some of those issues with COVID, because the jobs that a lot of college students have are the ones that were impacted by COVID. They did not receive anything in the first stimulus. They were not considered a dependent from that standpoint because they were too old, but yet they weren't filing their own taxes, so they were kind of in this middle ground. So for this one, they say all dependents. If you claim as a dependent, you get that 14, as long as the person filing taxes.
Not you don't get it.
Right. As long as the person filing taxes meets those income thresholds,
right,
all dependents on that tax return qualify for $1,400.
Correct.
Now, that $1,400 goes to the tax filer.
Correct.
Now, they can do whatever. They can hand it to that college student or whatever. That also includes elderly. So if you have a parent who is your dependent based on care and you file them on your tax return as a dependent, they also qualify for $1,400.
Exactly.
But all payments go to the tax filer.
Next up, so that was the biggest chunk that a lot of people are going to care about is direct payments to individuals.
Yep.
There's a lot of other provisions, and we're gonna give this a very high level overview because we're not going to spend 10 hours reading it line for line.
Lot of caveats in here. We're hitting kind of the big ones that I think people will want to know about.
So if you want to read more, it is all publicly available.
Yes.
But we're not going to read all word for word. We're going to hit you some highlights here. So the next segment we're going to talk about is unemployment.
Right.
So we're about to hit the extended unemployment benefit deadline expiring again.
It's end of March.
So it was that's what was happening at the end of last year, which is why they needed to pass a bill real quick and did. Mm-hmm. And then we're running up against that again, and that's why there's a rush to get this bill passed right now. So that $300 unemployment extension of additional federal stimulus is going to be extended now.
Yep. And it was $400 for a little while, and then in all their reconciliation and all the earmarks
it was
and amendments and all that
in the spring.
Yeah, but the bill itself had $400 for a while, and then they negotiated through and agreed on $300 a week, and that's been extended all the way through September. All right. And so September is kind of now this, for a lot of these things you're going to hear us talk about September. That's kind of this now deadline for a lot of these things. So $300 a week in addition to your normal state unemployment that you're receiving. So this is the federal unemployment. The other thing they put in here is they added the first $10,200, because, nice even numbers.
Nice round number, yep.
Is tax-free if you earn less than $150,000. I believe that's your married filing jointly number. But again, what they're doing here is they're looking at, for people who were impacted last year, a lot of them may not have realized, but unemployment benefits are taxable.
Yeah.
And if you do not withhold taxes on your unemployment, when you file your taxes, you may be in for a surprise. And if you're still on unemployment, you don't have a lot of extra cash to pay that tax that's owed.
Right.
And so I think this is kind of and this is only for 2021 though. So it doesn't help you for last year, but for this year, the first $10,200 is tax-free if you stay within this income limit.
Next up, health insurance. So there's been some changes to health insurance. One of the big provisions is COBRA insurance, which is continuation of benefits something or other.
It's a Consolidated Omnibus Budget Reconciliation Act.
Okay, that's great. I'm glad you put that out there so that we can know COBRA. And what that really is that it's been around for a long time. COBRA has, and that is A, if you leave an employer, or B, if you get let go of an employer, you had the option to continue to remain on your employer or prior employer's healthcare plan, although your premium would be substantially higher.
So the way the COBRA is set up is
historically
for large corporations. I think there's a certain employer cap for COBRA to apply, or minimum. But it says if you separate from employment and you need to continue your health care benefits, you are allowed to stay in your company plan, but you have to pay, and it's upwards to like 110%. And you're like, what's that 10%? Well, now that the company isn't considering you a benefit to their firm, you have to pay those administrative costs pretty much is what it is. And so you could pay up to 110% of your premium costs that they have for that plan. Now, in this bill, COBRA, they didn't touch COBRA, but what they're doing is they're setting money aside that will help cover the premium costs for certain people who qualify from April 1st through the end of September. So again, what they're doing is saying, we know you can get health care, but you may not be able to afford that health care, so we're going to help you with that. And so you have to qualify, so you have to have had lost your job, not left voluntarily. So COBRA applies if you just walk away.
Oh, yeah. But you have the option.
This does not apply in that they'll cover your premiums unless you got fired
or
or lost your job because they closed or COVID related.
Yep.
So that's a piece. There's some other caveats there. Again, we're not going to go to the little details of these things because there's some other stuff along there. But high level, for some people, they could qualify for that COBRA premium, at least through the summer, to be covered.
And Josh, there was also a provision in the bill about some differentiation in the Affordable Care Act coverage premium amounts.
Yeah. So health insurance, if you go to the ACA, the Affordable Care Act, some people call it Obamacare. That has, you go onto the exchange and you look for, some states run their own exchange. There's a government one as well, but you go on there and you shop for your health insurance. When you're on there, they have like a gold or silver, platinum, bronze. They have different levels. And even before this bill, they had the silver was kind of their baseline. That was kind of their middle one. And they had some certain rules. So if you earned a certain amount of income or you're below a certain amount of income, you would get a tax credit, which would help offset your premiums. It was a way of making it affordable. The Affordable Care Act that made it affordable for healthcare. If you were above an income limit, you could still shop on the Affordable Care Act. You just you would not get any reduction in your premiums. This new stimulus bill that they passed would, just from now through 2022, so they are giving you really a year and a half or over a year and a half, they would cap your health care premiums to 8.5% of your modified adjusted gross income, which is you take your adjusted gross income and add back in a little bit of income.
Right. Some
things you exclude, like your interest, tax-free interest, and those type of things. But anyway, your modified adjusted gross income used to be you cap out, and you could have, there were some people that were paying 50% of their income to their premiums because they didn't qualify. They made too much.
Right.
But they were either in a high risk or they were elderly or something was causing them to pay these high premiums. Now they're capping it for everybody. I think it's up to maybe $400,000, but there's pretty much capping it for everybody for the next 2 years 8.5% of your modified adjusted gross income.
That is
That's a big deal.
substantially lower than it could have been.
Yeah. And for people below that, they're helping extend those. So if you're under a certain percent of the poverty or the median income line, they'll actually give you more. So overall, shopping on the Affordable Care Act may find you a lot cheaper or even free premiums, at least for the next year or so.
Yeah.
And if you're already on there, you can go, they're still in the open enrollment, you can make adjustments to make sure you qualify.
Did that enrollment timetable get moved back?
They extended, so all the way through May 15th.
Gotcha. Because that is like in a month. And
usually it's the end of December.
Oh, okay.
Is when they allow you to do
Gotcha.
your shopping. Now, qualifying events are, again,
Always
they allow
okay.
open. If you lose your job, you can. That's a qualifying event to get new insurance.
So the next category you should be familiar with because you have 1,000
I do
kids.
have a lot of kids.
But yes, you have 5 kids if you include Baxter.
Yep.
Because I'm going to count him.
Easy.
So, yes, Josh, kids, child benefits have changed
Yep.
going forward, at least for 2021. So talk about that a little bit.
Yep. So there's a couple different benefits out there
Because these are pretty
having
big
kids.
big
Yeah.
changes.
So the first one is the child care tax credit. So if you have daycare or some sort of cost for taking care of kids while you're at work, they allow you to take a tax credit on that up to a certain amount. Now they've extended that. So it's $4,000 for one kid or $8,000 for more than one kid. Now, how you actually get there is a fun calculation. You take 50% of all eligible expenses, and then they take that based on your income, and it's a certain percentage that you're allowed to claim. It's a fun whole, don't even try to do it on your own. It's a crazy calculation.
And you can only claim that if your daycare provider is claiming it. Like if you're using someone off the books,
Oh, yeah.
you can't.
You got to show it.
Yeah, you have to have proof, and all, and everyone has to be on top of the table. So
Yep.
if you're using, your friend as
that's-
childcare, that's not going to help you.
But for most people, what this is going to do is just allow them to take, because again, it's up to 50% of your income. So the people who get the most out of this credit are still paying the other half out of pocket without any kind of offset. So all this is doing increasing those dollar amounts higher so you get more of your costs covered. Because even for one kid, $4,000 for a year is pretty cheap for daycare.
Oh,
And
yeah.
so it's not covering everything, but it's allowing a larger chunk to be covered.
Yep.
The other thing for that, there was a very low income limit for that. It was like $15,000 to get the full benefit out of that. They bumped that to $125,000.
So most people should get.
So again, what they're saying
Yeah.
is we understand a lot of things happen. More people probably had to find daycare because schools were closed. That might continue on. They're allowing a little bit more flexibility there. Only for 2021. Also, only in 2021, you can add $10,500 in what's called a dependent flex spending account. I'm not huge familiar with that. It depends on where you're at, but that's something an employer has for you that they put some money into, or you opt your salary into, and it's kind of like if you think of a health savings account.
Yeah.
That's for healthcare expenses, and you get tax deduction, blah, blah, blah.
Yep.
This is similar, but it's for your dependent care. And so it used to be $5,000. They more than doubled to $10,500. Great if you use it. The problem with that is your employer has to opt to allow this. So if they don't change their plan and it says in the rules 5,000, they don't amend it or adopt
Right.
it, you're stuck at 5. You
Yeah.
can't do it on your own. So it's kind of a weird thing. Not a lot of employers offer this flex plan, but if it's there, at least talk to your employer. It doesn't cost them anything. They get, there's no penalty for them to do this. They just have to go through the effort of increasing it.
So probably even a bigger deal as it relates to children is the child tax credit that is new and improved in 2021.
Yeah, and this is right now just for 2021.
Correct.
But there's some talk that some of this may be continued onward.
Absolutely, yeah.
They'd have to do that in a separate bill. But for now, for 2021, for kids that are 5 years and under, they're going to give you a tax credit of $3,600 per kid.
Yep.
For kids that are up to age 17, so from 6 to 17, you get $3,000, which is like tripling what it used to be. Now, one of the things they're trying to do is they want this benefit to help people throughout this time. Again, the whole point of this bill is to help with COVID. And so what good is a tax credit that comes in
2022
April of
now.
2022?
Right. For now.
What good is that going to do?
Right.
And so what they're doing is that as soon as possible, they want the IRS or whoever's sending, I think it's the IRS that'll actually be distributing this, but they want them to send these checks as much as monthly or whatever's feasible for this to be done. So if we're going to say realistically, let's say it takes them a couple months to get this whole thing in order.
Could be mid-year.
They start July.
Yeah.
Let's just say they have the second half of the year. They're going to take half of that credit. So let's say you have the $3,000 credit, and then they're going to take half of that. So $1,500 for 6 months. That's like $500 a month you're going to get per kid as this credit's going to be given to you, but you won't get anything at the end when you file your tax. Right. You've already taken that credit. But the benefit is, $500 a month for the last 6 months of the year to help you out.
Yeah, this is kind of a build on the idea of universal basic income.
Yeah.
And what this is doing, with the incentive of doing it monthly or periodically, is that parents have been proven to be more responsible with providing for the needs of their children if they're seeing this every month versus getting a tax credit at the end of the year. Right. And then maybe they get a tax refund and just go spend it or whatever.
Right. And the other thing, I did my math wrong. So if it's the second half of the year, $3,000, it's actually $250. Yeah. But either way.
I wasn't going to correct you.
That's right. My brain told me it was not right.
And those thresholds are the same as the direct stimulus checks.
Yep. $75,000 single, $150 for married filing jointly.
Yep.
And then the head of household
right in the middle.
$112,500, but that's
Yep.
Not a lot of people use that.
Exactly. So, moving on to the earned income tax credit now for 2021 only.
Yes. So, what is the earned income tax credit? It's really to say, all right, I just mentioned all these things you get as having kids. Kids are expensive. They're there to help offset a little bit. Kids cost a little more than $3,000 a year, I think, but in general. This earned income tax credit is really for childless people.
Right.
If you're not claiming those dependents and stuff, you can get, it's $1,502. Because again,
that's a real great number.
Why not?
Because $1,500, they would think it was a typo when they were putting $1,500 in the bill. They're like, we'll just leave it at $1,502.
We got to make this balance. So that starts at age 19, which it used to be, I think, age 25. So they moved it back down again, trying to catch those people in that early post-college time frame, post-high school, where they may have experienced unemployment because of COVID and they want to help them out there.
Right.
So they get some money. There is no maximum age either, because again, this is really this. It used to be capped, I think, at 65, and again, they're saying at that point you shouldn't have to need this tax credit.
Right.
But they just opened it up, unless you have investment income of $10,000. So again, they moved that number up. They gave you a cushion there, and they actually made that permanent.
That's not just 2021,
and it's indexed to inflation going forward.
Gotcha.
So it gives you a cushion, but if you earn $10,000 of investment income, not earned income, investment income, you cannot claim this income tax credit. Again, it's there for the lower income to give them an extra cushion. And these credits, most of these new credits too, are credits in that even if you have zero tax, you still receive this. So that's where your refund comes in. You actually get this money.
Right.
Unlike a deduction where you have to have an income to offset.
Exactly.
So credits are more valuable from that standpoint.
So something else changed for rental assistance. Kind of elaborate on that a little bit.
Yeah. So now there was already programs in place to help moratoriums in the rental claims and for kicking people out, all that stuff. They've expanded and pretty much refunded some of those. So if you qualified for rental assistance in the past, the criteria is pretty much the same. You can continue that on with help. So pretty much it's income less than 80% of the median income in your area, and one member of your household is at high risk of homelessness or unemployment or hardship, then you qualify for this rental assistance. So pretty much they're just saying, okay, if you're not some ultra wealthy person compared to everybody around you, and you're having some problems, there'll be some assistance available.
Right. So two more kind of buckets we'll talk about. Yep. One is student loan debt.
Yep. So there's been talk about $10,000 of federal loan forgiveness going through the reconciliation process. That wasn't an option, at least at this point, and it's not something they put in the bill. But what they did do, and this is important, I think it's setting up for that opportunity down the road, is they said there'll be no income tax on forgiven debt all the way from now through 2025, which is 4 years, and a presidential term is 4 years.
Right.
So I'm thinking they're just kind of giving this ability that if President Biden wants to push a forgiveness through, which he's talked about in his campaign, is that would allow for anybody that gets that to not owe tax on the back end.
Right.
What would happen now, before this passed, was if someone forgave your debt, you would then show that as income and owe tax on that forgiven debt. And they're just trying to not give somebody a hardship. Because again, for a lot of people, and the example they would give is, if you're, let's say a teacher, someone who has student loan debt but don't have a high salary. To get that debt forgiveness is a huge relief on your burden.
Oh, yeah.
But if you have to turn around and pay
the tax on
that, which you don't have a lot of cash flow to do that, it could end up hurting you and making it harder for you. So that's what they put in there through 2025.
And that's one of the provisions, and there are multiple provisions in this bill that are not necessarily COVID related.
Right.
Some of these are kind of like an all-you-can-eat buffet
Yep.
of just throwing things in that could get passed. But then that's one of them. So kind of going on to that theme, there's the other bucket we're going to call it here. So there is actual COVID provision here. So there is actual money set aside for vaccine distribution and testing. There's about $350 billion for state and local governments, and that's been hotly debated as well between both sides of the aisle, whether that's really necessary or not, because some states actually did better in 2020 than they did in 2019. But then there are a lot of states that obviously had really bad
a great
financial
example of that
figures.
is Hawaii. Hawaii is dependent on
Tourism, and they had none.
And they closed themselves off to protect from COVID. That really hurt. So you're right. There's kind of a debate there and a gray area between need and other issues. But in general, they carved that out. Schools, another one?
Yeah, $130 billion for schools, and it's for COVID, they say, but actually only a small portion of that's going to get paid in 2021, and it actually extends for like 7 or 8 years of where the bulk of that payment goes out. So if you want to know more details of how that's getting spent going forward, look into the bill. It seems like there could be more than COVID stuff in there for school improvements or school teacher salary. Who knows what's in there? Small businesses obviously get extended aid through all of this. Hopefully some more small business loans and things to help them kind of coming out of this.
The PPP loan, they're refilling, funding up a lot of those so that if another round of any small business needs some additional funds, there is already a mechanism in place for that. You're right.
And the last line item is going to be up your alley, Josh. What is a multi-employer pension plan?
So,
is it a MEP?
Yes, it is a MEP, actually.
That's a real thing, right?
Yep. And so the idea there is what they allowed a couple of years ago is for multiple employers to group together and create a retirement plan together. And so pooling it together gives them a little bit more ability to spread that cost around and all that. Now, what if someone within your pension goes bankrupt and is unable to fulfill their obligations? As a group, you're still obligated to fulfill those pension needs. And when you have a pension, you have a guaranteed income side of things. And so the worry was that these group pension plans, let's say there's 3 companies that go together. If one of those 3 companies go out, now you have 2 needing to provide the revenue and income and payments into this plan to continue to have the lifetime payments for all the participants. It can become a burden on them. And so they're funding and pushing some money into these plans to help cushion them and safeguard them. And because, the one that left, obviously they probably are bankrupt or something happened with the company, but then the ones that are stuck also, you could put a financial burden on them and cause them to change it. So there's some debate on that as well, because pensions and those type of things can become kind of hot topic buttons. But in general, that was the whole purpose, was multi-employers, something happened within the plan to make the burden a lot stressful on the remaining employers.
So we know this bill discussion might be a burden on your brain.
Yes.
And Josh, because of that, I'm going to take some of that burden away.
Please do.
And I'm going to give you a dad joke of the week.
I'm ready.
This is a good one. Josh, what is the loudest pet there is?
The loudest pet. I know the quietest pet, but I don't know
what's the quietest pet?
A pony, because it's a little horse. No, but what's the loudest one? You tell me.
The loudest pet there is a trumpet.
Trumpet. I love it.
Okay, so let's get a little bit more practical.
Yes.
With so we've talked about the bill, who gets check, what's in the bill, all of those high-level items. Good to know, right?
Yep, hopefully everybody's still awake.
Yeah, hopefully you're still awake, because this is a little bit longer of an episode here, but it's good. We need to get this out to everyone in a timely manner here. So we had mentioned it before, but there are a couple provisions that were in the House version of the bill that did not pass in the Senate version of the bill. So those are change to federal minimum wage. That was the federal minimum wage is like $7.25, and the proposal was to make that $15, which has had really heat from both sides of the aisle, because A, it's not indexed to cost of living where you're at, and B, it's a huge jump. So that's had opposition on both sides, and one of the reasons that was pulled out of the bill was the Democrats needed all 50 Democrats plus the tiebreaker, Vice President Harris, to vote for it to appease the moderate Democrats who thought that would be too much.
And
so you
top
needed
of
all
that-
of them, so you had to pull that out
And
to
they
get
had
all
to
your
pull it out because they're going through the reconciliation process, which means the rule is it has to directly affect the budget. And so that does not affect the budget directly. And so the Senate actually ruled, they have this person in charge. She said, hey, you know what? This does not fit the rules of the process you're going through. If you want to go the other way, where you need a majority, you can go. But they knew they wouldn't have that, so they had to stay within this frame.
Oh, yeah.
And so they had to pull out this minimum wage for that reason. They also arguably could have pushed it through in one of their amendments, but they also were tough on the votes on that piece.
Yeah, and multiple, infrastructure projects like we talked about, that Silicon Valley Rail project and the New York to Canada, not California, bridge. So that's what's not in the bill. But here is the question everyone is wondering. What should or could, maybe we'll go with should, what should you do with your stimulus check? So suppose everything passes and in a few weeks you've got a chunk of change sitting in your checking account because you signed up for your electronic funds transfer for your taxes. Well, there's two groups, right, that this impacts. Number one, there's the people who are out of work and down on their luck and have not really had a good go at it during COVID. That's one group.
Yep.
There's another group who have been able to work from home or work whatever, normal hours. They may be money ahead through COVID because they're not traveling, they're not spending, whatever. They're still making decent money, but they still get the check because those checks are blanket. It's based on income. It's not.
Income.
It's not based on anything else. Yep. So those are the two different groups. So obviously, if you need the money to pay your dang bills, go pay your bills. Pay your rent, pay for food, keep your family warm, pay all that. So please do that. That's like phase one. But if you're in the other group where you don't necessarily need this to for your day-to-day living, some options that you may, use this money for is, paying off some high-interest debt. Maybe you've got some credit card debt. Maybe you've got car loan, whatever that may be. Pay off a personal loan, pay those off because that's only going to help you. Number two, you could fund your emergency fund. If you didn't already, you just shove it in your savings account and don't look at it.
Yep. Now, speaking of that, we saw last year our overall, if you look at the U.S. economy, we saw record savings.
Oh, yeah.
So people last year kind of, like you mentioned, one was they didn't have a lot of options to spend, could travel, and those things were kind of limited, but people saved. They kind of realized what happens when things change and said, I'd like to have a little cushion there. So we saw a record high savings, which is great.
Right.
From a long-term viability of our economy is to say people added a cushion to their lifestyle and their expenses.
And actually, so that is reported monthly.
Yes.
And you could see that in the months where stimulus checks came in, so that would have been April, May, and December or January or whatever, huge spikes in the savings rate. And what that does is that's not necessarily stimulus, right? In the current moment.
Right.
That is delayed stimulus. So the more money the government spends, this is just, basic economics. The more money the government spends, they're going to get less bang for their buck out of that because the more money people have, the less they need to spend.
Right.
So what you're going to do is if you're putting the money in the stock market or you're sitting on it in a bank account or whatever, you're still going to spend that money, but you're just spending it later.
Yep.
So you're delaying that. These stimulus bills are going to stimulate the economy, but to a lesser degree than the first one did or whatever because of where we're at with, the overall country finances there. Another alternative there is that you could put it in investment accounts, and we've talked a couple weeks ago about what kind of accounts you can put that in and kind of the increments that you can do that in 2021.
Funding a Roth IRA is great.
It's a great use of your
way
money.
to use that money if you don't have anything to spend it on.
But if you did want to spend money,
if you wanted to spend,
it's okay.
And
if you have all those things checked off,
piece is there. And I've talked to some people that just even feel, I don't need this money. It's extra. I'm going to stimulate the economy because that gives the best benefit for everybody.
Right.
You could give it away too, but in a sense, that's what you're doing when you're spending is you're continuing that, putting the money back into the economy. So housing projects.
Oh, yeah.
Great improvements. I mean, if you're going to be stuck in your house again, why not make it a little bit more fun to stay
saw
at?
Lowe's stock was up like 4% on the news. The stimulus bill passed again.
Hoping for it. And that's, we saw a big increase in costs of those.
Oh, absolutely.
Lumber and all that stuff was crazy. Book a trip as things start opening back up.
Yeah.
I'm anticipating that travel for the next couple of years
Boom.
is going to be pretty heavy,
Yeah.
in that people just postponed and are going to look forward to that freedom and flexibility. And then if you just want to buy something nice,
Yeah.
for me, that's great.
Yeah.
What about you, Austin?
I'm going to get you a donut.
Be great.
It'd be great. It'll stimulate the local economy, local donut shop.
But in general, we always encourage, like Austin said, is first look at your own finances. Where can this best benefit you? Do I have debt that I need to pay down? Is my emergency fund where I need it to be? And then at that point, it becomes, do I want to invest this money? Where am I at with my goals? And then also do I want to put some of this back into the economy and stimulate it? And
Absolutely.
So maybe it's a combination of some of those.
Yeah, and it probably is.
Yeah.
There is always a use, but give that money a name when it comes in,
Yes.
right?
If you just set it around, it'll find its own way out.
It's going to sneak a walk
it'll
away.
disappear.
So yes, there are uses for that money. Let's take a little bit higher level view. Let's talk about the implications of another, $2 trillion stimulus bill here. So as we look at the macro economy and the country as a whole. So obviously, based on our current political landscape, there's a lot of butting of heads going on. Mm-hmm. Margins are slim in both the House and the Senate, especially the Senate, obviously, being 50-50. And it seems like there's going to be a little bit more continued party division because the Democrats they pushed it through. They just pushed it through because they could, and they had to quickly. Mm-hmm. But there was a little bit less bipartisanship than perhaps the Republicans would have wanted there. So one thing the bill didn't do was aid in bringing down that wall.
And I think both sides were reluctant to do anything this time around. It seemed to me there wasn't a Republican looking to cross over and add to this side,
right?
And there wasn't Democrats looking to compromise and move it looked like neither party really wanted to have a group effort on this.
Absolutely. Another implication is that there is no way to deny that we are taking out another $2 trillion
1.9.
Yeah, 1.9. Sorry, I'm rounding. In national debt. Now, the caveat is that we're taking out, debt at the lowest interest rates we probably ever have.
Yeah.
So it's in a relatively affordable way to do that. But $2 trillion is what, 10% of GDP.
I mean, the last time I borrowed $2 trillion, it was at a higher interest rate and it was rough. So
they said it was risky.
I'm kind of jealous.
Yeah, they said it was risky.
Jealous that I can't borrow my $2 trillion at this.
So the thing about national debt is that there's going to come a day to pay the piper eventually, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Obviously, every year we're printing more debt and we're issuing more debt because we're running a deficit. Mm-hmm. And we're keeping up and doing a good job of paying the interest that we owe on that. But eventually you have to pay the debt.
Yeah.
So that's just something to keep in the back of our mind. We're borrowing now to stimulate our economy and grow now, but we have to know that it is going to slow it down in the future.
Yep.
You can't have free lunch both times.
Yep.
You only get one free lunch. So that's kind of one thing to think about there. Another thing that Josh kind of hit on is the huge increase of savings and personal income in 2021. That's good. That is a good thing. However, there are some caveats that come with that as well. And number two, coming with that, is there's probably, with everyone making more money, having more money on hand, you're going to continue to see inflation. Mm-hmm. So inflation is already creeping up a little bit, but there is anticipation that as the economy reopens, with the Fed holding rates at zero and people having a lot more money in their pockets, things are going to pick up in terms of what they cost substantially over the next year or so. Mm-hmm. So that is something to watch because it certainly could impact you.
Yeah. From an economic standpoint, when you take inflation in our debt, though, from a government standpoint, inflation is a good thing because inflation is growth of our economy. Yeah. Growth of our economy means higher tax revenue. Higher tax revenue means easier payment on that debt that's owed.
You could inflate your debt away.
Yes, but you don't want to have 10% inflation because you may inflate your debt away, but you're going to knock everybody else down and struggle through, and your tax revenue is not going to grow like that. So
exactly.
There's that fine balance between growing the economy, having some form of inflation, and not too much where it's going to hurt the overall economic development, like you said, down the road.
And that's why the Fed has a mandate, and they've set, they want to see, core inflation, plus or minus 2%.
Yep.
And they're going to let it run a little hot for a little while, but they're not going to let it run too hot for too long.
Yep.
before they start putting on the brakes a little bit. And right now, it's like open season for the Fed right now. They're still buying a bunch of...
They're doing everything.
They're buying bonds like crazy. The interest rates are zero. It's just like Christmas all the time.
Yep.
And that Christmas will end.
Yeah.
But anyway, a couple positives that are going to come out of this is we are surely going to see, provided we don't go into a full shutdown again, substantial economic growth in 2021 compared to 2020.
Right.
You've bought it. Like, obviously, the health side of things with the vaccine rolling out going well, COVID cases and deaths going down very sharply, that is helping.
Yep.
So that's going to open up the economy. But on top of an opening up economy, you're throwing in $2 trillion of money. That's going to definitely grow the economy.
There's no arguing that this money will not stimulate the economy.
Oh,
it's just, was this amount needed? And is this the timing work?
Exactly.
But when you throw money into the economy, it stimulates. I mean, that's just an economic fact. Now, jobs.
Oh, yeah.
Now, there is some provisions in here for unemployment, and the debate is how much is too much where you de-incentivize people from looking for work. But as states are starting to open back up, which we've seen a handful of states already announce they're going to be fully opened, whether that's too soon or not, there's debate out there for that as well. But as that happens, we're going to see more and more job opportunities, and hopefully you'll see more and more people go back into the workforce when it's safe and when it's effective for them to do that.
Yeah.
And that'll be the hope.
Yeah, with the economy growing, people going, spending money, that's going to naturally bring people back to the workforce. Now, like you said, there's that fine balance of incentive, providing the people who need the help with incentivizing people to go back to work, because you're going to get more economic growth even if everyone went back to work too. So It's like you just have to work all different angles, and the government has a very tough job of balancing that, I understand. So that's kind of the overall macroeconomic implications of that. But I think in general, economists around the world have said we need some form of fiscal stimulus for a while. We got it, whether it's too much or too little or the wrong time. That's not our job. We're just giving you the facts of what's in it. But I think it's going to substantially change the outlook of the country and the economy for the short term anyway. So, as always, check out our free gift to you, a brief list of 8 principles of timeless investing. These are overarching investment themes meant to keep you on track to meet your long-term goals. We don't specifically count on stimulus checks as part of our long-term financial plan, but hey, it might not hurt in 2021. So check it out. It's free on our website. Josh, how can people help us grow this podcast?
Yep. Make sure that you are subscribed. That way you get our Thursday releases every week. Leave us a review on Apple Podcasts. Also, if you have any ideas or questions about this stimulus bill, shoot us an email at hello@theinvesteddads.com. And then if you know somebody was asking about this most recent stimulus bill, share this episode with them.
All right. Well, until next Thursday, have a great week.
All right. Talk to you later.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to the Invested Dads podcast. This episode has ended, but your journey towards a better financial future doesn't have to. Head over to theinvesteddads.com to access all the links and resources mentioned in today's show. If you enjoyed this episode and we had a positive impact on your life, leave us a review, click subscribe, and don't miss the next episode. Josh Robb and Austin Wilson work for Hicks & Zerker Capital Management. All opinions expressed by Josh, Austin, or any podcast guests are solely their own opinions and do not reflect the opinions of Hicks & Zerker Capital Management. This podcast is for informational purposes only and should not be relied upon for investment decisions. Clients of Hicks & Zerker Capital Management may maintain positions in the securities discussed in this podcast. There is no guarantee that the statements, opinions, or forecasts provided herein will prove to be correct. Past performance may not be indicative of future results. Indices are not available for direct investment. Any investor who attempts to mimic the performance of an index would incur fees and expenses which would reduce returns. Securities investing involves risk, including the potential for loss of principal. There is no assurance that any investment plan or strategy will be successful.